The sun dappled through the trees, casting a serene glow on the forest floor. Birds sang melodiously, their tunes weaving a symphony of nature's peace. The forest seemed like a sanctuary, a place where one could escape the chaos of the world and find solace in the embrace of nature. It was a picturesque May morning in Waukesha, Wisconsin. The small town was waking up to the promise of a beautiful day. The streets were quiet, with only the occasional car passing by. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass. It was the kind of morning that made you believe in the goodness of the world. Two 12-year-old girls, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weyer, lured their friend Peyton Leutner into the woods. They walked together, their laughter echoing through the trees. To an outsider, they looked like any other group of friends, enjoying a day of adventure and fun, but beneath the surface, a dark plan was unfolding. They had been planning this for months. A chilling plan, a sacrifice. They believed that by committing this act, they would appease a mythical figure known as Slender Man. The idea had consumed them, turning their innocent minds into a cauldron of fear and obsession. They were convinced that this was the only way to protect their families from harm. Peyton thought they were playing a game. She trusted her friends, believing that they were embarking on a harmless adventure. The forest was their playground, a place where they could let their imaginations run wild. They had played here many times before, creating stories and fantasies that only children could conjure. A game of fantasy and make-believe. They had always loved stories of magic and mystery, tales of heroes and villains. But this time, the lines between reality and fiction blurred. The game took a sinister turn, and Peyton found herself caught in a nightmare she couldn't escape. She didn't know that her life was about to change forever. Oblivious to the danger that lurked in the hearts of her friends, she walked with them, her mind filled with the innocent joy of childhood. She had no reason to suspect that this day would end in horror. Morgan and Anissa attacked Peyton. They stabbed her repeatedly, 19 times. The forest, once a place of peace, became a scene of unimaginable violence. Peyton's screams echoed through the trees, a haunting cry for help that went unanswered. The betrayal was complete, and the innocence of childhood was shattered. They left her for dead, her small body hidden amongst the trees. Peyton miraculously survived. Despite the severity of her injuries, she found the strength to keep fighting. Her will to live was stronger than the darkness that had tried to consume her. She crawled to a nearby road, her body weak and bleeding. Each movement was a struggle, but she refused to give up. A cyclist discovered her, a guardian angel in the form of a passerby. The sight of her broken and bleeding was a stark contrast to the peaceful morning that had begun the day. The image of her, broken and bleeding, sent shockwaves across the nation. News of the attack spread quickly, leaving people in disbelief. How could something so horrific happen in a small town like Waukesha? The community was left reeling, struggling to comprehend the darkness that had invaded their lives. What could possess two young girls to commit such a horrific act? The question haunted everyone who heard the story. Morgan and Anissa were subjected to psychological evaluations, their young faces filled with confusion and fear. The answers were not easy to find, buried deep within the twisted corridors of their minds. The answer lay in the shadows of the internet, in the haunting legend of Slender Man. A figure born from the depths of online forums, Slender Man had become a modern-day boogeyman. His influence had seeped into the minds of the young girls, warping their perception of reality. They believed that by sacrificing Peyton, they would become his proxies, gaining his protection and favor. The internet, a place of endless information and connection, had also become a breeding ground for fear and manipulation. The story of Slender Man was a cautionary tale, a reminder of the power of belief and the dangers of losing oneself in the shadows. The case shocked the world. It was a story that seemed too horrific to be true, yet it unfolded in a small town, leaving everyone in disbelief. The media coverage was relentless, and the public's reaction was a mix of horror and confusion. How could something so tragic happen in a seemingly peaceful community? How could children be capable of such violence? This question echoed through the minds of parents, teachers, and psychologists alike. The sight of young children in handcuffs, facing serious charges, was a stark reminder of the complexities of the human mind. especially at such a tender age. It was a scenario that challenged our understanding of innocence and evil. The subsequent trial offered a glimpse into the troubled minds of Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier. The courtroom became a stage where the intricate details of their lives were laid bare. Testimonies from experts, family members, and the girls themselves painted a picture of deep psychological turmoil. The judge and jury were tasked with the difficult job of sifting through this complex web of information to deliver a just verdict. Morgan received a diagnosis of early-onset schizophrenia. This revelation was crucial in understanding her actions. Schizophrenia is a severe mental disorder that affects how a person thinks, feels, and behaves. For Morgan, it meant living in a world where the lines between reality and fantasy were constantly blurred. Her diagnosis explained the hallucinations and delusions that drove her to commit such an unthinkable act. This debilitating mental illness distorted her reality, blurring the lines between fantasy and reality. Morgan's perception of the world was like looking into a shattered mirror where nothing was as it seemed. Her mind was a maze of confusion and fear, making it difficult for her to distinguish between what was real and what was not. This distortion of reality was a key factor in the tragic events that unfolded. Anissa, while not diagnosed with schizophrenia, was found to be highly susceptible to shared delusional disorder. This condition, also known as folie à deux, occurs when one person in a close relationship adopts the delusions of another. Anissa's vulnerability to this disorder made her an easy target for Morgan's intense beliefs. Her anxiety and need for acceptance played a significant role in her involvement in the crime. This meant she was easily influenced by the delusions of others, particularly in the context of a close relationship. The bond between Morgan and Anissa was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it provided them with companionship and understanding. On the other, it became a conduit for shared delusions. Anissa's susceptibility to Morgan's beliefs turned their friendship into a dangerous alliance. In this case, Morgan's intense belief in Slender Man became a shared reality for Anissa. The internet, with its vast and often dark corners, became the breeding ground for their delusions. Slender Man, a fictional character born from online forums, took on a life of its own in their minds. The eerie drawings and stories they found online fueled their obsession, making the line between fiction and reality even more indistinguishable. Their shared delusion became a dangerous pact, fueled by their isolation and immersion in the darkest corners of the internet. The virtual world provided them with a sense of belonging that they couldn't find in real life. However, it also isolated them from reality, creating an echo chamber for their fears and fantasies. This dangerous combination led to a pact that would have devastating consequences, forever changing their lives and the lives of those around them. The internet played a chilling role in this case. Morgan and Anissa were active in online communities dedicated to creepypasta. Creepypastas are horror stories, often user-generated, shared, and adapted online. One figure loomed large in their digital world: Slender Man. This fictional entity, a tall, faceless figure in a black suit, is said to stalk and abduct children. Morgan and Anissa believed Slender Man was real. They believed he demanded a sacrifice. They believed that by harming Peyton, they would become his proxies, protecting their families from his wrath. Their young minds, already grappling with mental health issues, were easily influenced by the immersive nature of the internet. The lines between fiction and reality blurred with tragic consequences. The trial of Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier ignited a firestorm of debate. The case was not just about the crime they committed, but also about the broader implications for society. It raised questions that went beyond the courtroom, touching on issues of mental health, juvenile justice, and the pervasive influence of the internet on young minds. Could children so influenced by the internet be held fully accountable for their actions? The digital age has brought with it a new set of challenges, especially for the younger generation. They are constantly bombarded with information, some of which they may not be mature enough to process or understand fully. This case forced us to consider whether the internet could be a contributing factor in such tragic events. Were they victims themselves, ensnared by a digital world they didn't fully comprehend? The internet can be a double-edged sword, offering both knowledge and danger. For Morgan and Anissa, it became a trap. leading them down a dark path influenced by a fictional character. This raised the question of whether they were truly responsible for their actions or if they were manipulated by forces beyond their control. The court grappled with these questions. The legal system had to navigate uncharted waters, balancing the need for justice with the understanding of mental health issues. The jurors and the judge had to consider the girl's mental state, their age, and the influence of external factors like the internet. It was a complex and emotionally charged trial that left no one unaffected. Ultimately, both girls were found not guilty by reason of mental illness. This verdict was a reflection of the court's recognition of their mental health struggles. It was a decision that acknowledged the complexity of their situation, but it also sparked controversy and debate among the public. Morgan was sentenced to 40 years in a mental health facility. This was not a typical prison sentence, but rather a commitment to a place where she could receive the treatment she needed. The goal was to rehabilitate rather than punish, to provide her with the tools to understand and manage her mental health. Anissa received a 25-year sentence. Her sentence was also served in a mental health facility, reflecting the court's understanding of her mental state. Both sentences were designed to address the root causes of their actions rather than simply incarcerate them. The sentences, while acknowledging their mental illnesses, reflected the severity of their crime. The court had to balance compassion with accountability, ensuring that the girls received the help they needed while also recognizing the impact of their actions on the victim and the community. The case sparked a national conversation about the influence of the internet on young minds. It highlighted the need for better education and awareness about the potential dangers of online content. Parents, educators, and policymakers were urged to take a closer look at how the internet affects children and to find ways to protect them from harmful influences. It forced us to confront the dark side of online culture and the potential consequences of unchecked access for vulnerable youth. The case of Morgan Geyser and Anissa Wire serves as a stark reminder of the importance of monitoring and guiding young people's internet use. It calls for a collective effort to create a safer digital environment where children can explore and learn without falling prey to the darker aspects of the online world.